There's only 4 weeks left in the 2015 NFL regular season, and the college football playoff and bowl schedule is all set. So I figure it's a good time to come on here and give you another updated 2016 NFL mock draft. It's only a 1-round edition this time. Next week, I'll plan on doing a 2, maybe even 3-round mock again, so that way I could get into more players and talk about more things. You can check out all 31 picks from my one-round mock draft, though, in the description box down below. And as always, you're welcome to give me your thoughts, your comments, your questions on the picks or on individual prospects. Please chime in the comments section below. The only thing that I ask, though, before you question something in this mock draft, don't just click on the video, hit pause, even though you probably already have, and look at the picks and then leave your comments. Maybe some of the stuff that you actually are questioning I would have actually addressed in the video. And sometimes when I look at the comments in these mock draft videos, I see comments that lead me to believe, oh, this person clearly didn't watch because I addressed this 2 or 3 minutes in and I explained this in great detail, or they clearly didn't get that there was a particular scenario. And as you know, for those of you that consistently watch the mock drafts that I usually do it with some type of scenario playing out or there's some type of greater purpose, whatever the case might be. Now, in terms of this particular mock draft, I think this is a little bit closer to reality in terms of how I think things would actually play out and how they should actually play out. Now, we'll start off with the quarterback position. I've got 3 quarterbacks going in round number 1. One of them is not Connor Cook. Some of you may be surprised by that. You know, it's just I look at Connor Cook, and here's a guy that has a lot of experience as a starter for Michigan State. And maybe if his team beats Alabama, goes on to win the college football playoff, some of the narrative about him changes. I know there's some questions about him in terms of his leadership and his attitude. But what concerns me even more is about his accuracy and his ability to be a consistent thrower out of the pocket. And when I look at some of the other quarterbacks in this class and the upside that they have, I think he's inferior to Jared Goff by a big margin in terms of as a pure pocket passer. And I don't think he has nearly the combination or set of skills overall and the physical upside of a Paxton Lynch or especially a Carson Wentz from North Dakota State. You know, when you look at this quarterback class, this could be a bit of a scary quarterback class for teams because there are teams that are desperate for quarterbacks, teams that are going to be in a position to get a guy, but they might be afraid to pull the trigger. You've got Jared Goff, who earlier this year put up some big numbers against some so-so opponents, and then later on in the year, as he started facing better teams in the Pac-12, we know how that went. It didn't exactly go very well. And then the other 2 top quarterbacks in this class, you talk about a guy that plays at Memphis and another one that plays at North Dakota State that hurt his wrist and ended up missing the last half of the season. So it's going to take some courage and take some balls for NFL front offices come draft time in their war rooms to decide to pull the trigger on quarterbacks like Paxton Lynch and Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. But if they do their due diligence and they do their research and realize that these guys can play regardless of what other people might think or say, you know, their organizations could be better off for it long term. I look at the Cleveland Browns, number 1 overall. Assuming they stay there, even with them now giving Johnny Football the chance to play the last 4 games. If they finish with the number 1 overall pick, it's because Manziel didn't do well, and they're going to be ready to move on from him, which they're probably going to do anyways. It's just a showcase to try and get some type of value out of him in a trade in the offseason, probably with the Dallas Cowboys, or maybe somebody like the Philadelphia Eagles on the back burner, because you're going to have a new general manager probably, a new head coach probably, because that's what the Browns do, and frankly, Ray Farmer and Mike Pettine are clearly in over their heads, so they should be fired already, even after only 2 years. So it means a new organization, whole structure, a new general manager, a new head coach, means a new quarterback. Well, they're in a position here, number 1 overall, to take the guy in Paxton Lynch that might be viewed as the safest of the quarterback prospects. Here's a guy 6'7" with a strong arm, a good athlete. In some capacities, reminds me a bit of a poor man's Cam Newton. He's not nearly as strong and athletic as a Cam Newton, but I think his throwing motion's a little bit similar in terms of the fact that it has a little bit of a windup. I think he's a better thrower than he's maybe given credit for. I know that most certainly was the case for me for Cam Newton coming out of Auburn with everybody focused on his running ability. He had the ability to make some big-time special throws even in college. But when I look at him, a big guy that can move, you know, Paxton Lynch reminds me physically some of a Cam Newton. I know most of the NFL draft media is going to be scrambling to try and find a white guy to compare him to, but the white guy comparison is not the appropriate comparison in this case. You know, when I look at Jared Goff, I've got him going number 7 to the St. Louis Rams. You know, I don't think at this moment, based off of what I've seen this year, that Jared Goff is the best quarterback prospect in this class anymore. I don't even think he's the second best quarterback prospect in this class anymore. I think he's number 3. But I think for a team like the St. Louis Rams, Jared Goff might represent a safer pick for them, but they've got to go quarterback. They finally moved on from Sam Bradford. Nick Foles is not the answer. Until that organization gets a quarterback, they're not going anywhere. So if they're going to reach on any position, it's better for them to reach on a quarterback, because taking Goff at number 7, I don't necessarily think represents a tremendous reach, not a tremendous one. And some of the other guys and some of the other players in that range that could potentially be there, guys like Ogbah and Bosa at defensive end, would make a lot of sense in that system. Yes, they would, especially with the Chris Long contract situation and the age and his injury problems that he's had. That might be a guy that's potentially a salary cap casualty. You could look at a guy like a Hargreaves or a Jalen Ramsey if they're there and say the Rams need an impact player in the secondary. Problem is, though, is that their bigger issues still by far, even with the issues they have on defense or on the offensive side of the ball, they don't have a quarterback. They've got Todd Gurley, who's a stud. Their offensive line is improving, but they have absolutely nothing outside of Tavon Austin in the passing game, and they don't even use Tavon Austin all that well. And there's not, I don't think at this moment, a wide receiver really worth a top 10 pick in this draft. So as a result, you got to go quarterback. It's the way you got to go. But the quarterback pick that would be the most interesting to me would be Carson Wentz to the Philadelphia Eagles at pick number 14. Of course, I would be pissed because that would mean they took him one pick before my Bears, and I would love nothing more for them to end up with White Mariota at number 15. But with that said, I call him White Mariota for a reason. Because when I watch Carson Wentz, I look at him, and physically and in terms of his game and everything, he is eerily reminiscent to me of Marcus Mariota. And if Chip Kelly's still going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles, he's going to want to have a quarterback. But Sam Bradford ain't getting the job done. I don't know why the fuck anybody thought Sam Bradford would get the job done to begin with, because he's just not. But Carson Wentz in that system could get the job done for him. I realize it would take balls and it would take a lot of guts to pick a Carson Wentz in the middle of round 1, especially if you're on the hot seat like Chip Kelly would clearly be if he was back with the Philadelphia Eagles as general manager and coach in 2016. But what the hell difference does it make anyways? You might as well take the guy that has the potential to do more in your system that actually fits your system, that can actually be some type of threat to run the damn football. And Carson Wentz is an underrated passer. I think he's a guy, like I said, that reminds me a lot of Mariota, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on him as a quarterback prospect because he went to North Dakota State. People don't care about the fact that he won a national championship last year. They won't care about the physical skill set. They'll care about the fact he didn't play at an Alabama or an Oklahoma or an Ohio State or one of these big-name programs. But the fact of the matter is, as it stands right now, to me, Carson Wentz is the number 1 quarterback prospect in this class. And if Philadelphia got him at number 14, that organization and that fan base, frankly, should be doing backflips. In terms of other trends you'll notice, I think you're going to see an early run on defensive linemen because that's where a lot of this talent is in this draft, especially in the first 2 to 3 rounds. A lot of depth on the defensive line. Defensive linemen that could play inside in a 4-3, defensive ends that could play outside in a 4-3, plenty of guys that are defensive linemen that play tackles in a 4-3 now at college that could transition to end or even nose tackle in a 3-4. If you look, I've got 4 straight defensive linemen going in the top 6. You've got Ashawn Robinson 3, Buckner 4, Ogbah 5, Bosa 6. We'll start in backwards order. I don't think Bosa is the best pass rushing talent in this draft. I do not. I think I'm being generous here by having him go pick number 6. That's just my opinion again. I look at Ogbah, number 5 to Jacksonville. Maybe it would allow them to play Dante Fowler a little bit more at the Leo position, or fuck it, they could just say we play him on one end and we play Fowler on the other, and now we've really improved our pass rush. In terms of the Ravens at number 4, a lot of the Ravens fans are going to be screaming for Jalen Ramsey or Vernon Hargreaves, and I understand that. But, we forget about the fact that a lot of that success on the Ravens defense over the years came from that front 7. It came because of the guys, like some of you will point to Ed Reed, and I understand that. But you had Ray Lewis, you had Terrell Suggs, you had Haloti Ngata. And when I see a guy like a DeForest Buckner sitting there at number 4, the epitome of a natural 3-4 defensive end, if there is one in today's college football. He is the epitome of that. And a guy that showed a lot more as a pass rusher in 2015. I think a guy that people are really sleeping on in terms of how good of a prospect he could be. Last year, I thought he was a better prospect than Eric Armstead, who ended up going 17th overall to the 49ers. In this case, I think that because of his natural fit in the 3-4, and look at some of the other guys like Ogbah and Bosa, even though Baltimore might like to prefer their 3-4 outside linebackers to be a little bit bigger, I'm not sure that either one of those guys is a great fit for the 3-4, and sometimes that matters. It's not just about the talent, it's about the talent and the fit. And this is where the Houston Texans got it so wrong in 2014. They got all infatuated with the alleged talent of Jadeveon Clowney. However, they didn't realize the superior talent in Khalil Mack, who was a better fit for their system, was on the board, and if they were going to go defense, was the guy that they should have fucking taken. Sometimes you have to look at not just talent, but it's talent and fit. And I look at talent and fit for DeForest, Buckner, and the Baltimore Ravens, and I think it's a perfect match. Ogbah and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think it's a perfect match because he's big enough where on a pass rushing situation he can flip inside. And Joey Bosa, you might say, well, they've already spent second-round picks the past 2 years on DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory. Well, one, who the fuck is Randy Gregory at this point? What has he proven? And two, is DeMarcus Lawrence really going to be a big-time consistent force as a pass rusher? He's another undersized guy. But Joey Bosa, 6'6", 270, 275. You know, physically, he's like a Greg Hardy, hopefully without the lady beating problems off the field. So for the Cowboys at number 6, it's time to continue to invest in that defensive line like they have for years on the offensive line with good results. Now that if they continue to invest in the defensive line, it could give them some good results both as a run defense and a pass defense. You'll look, I've got a couple of Notre Dame products going 8-9. I think Jaylon Smith and Stephon Anthony in the linebacking tandem in that Saints 4-3 defense could potentially be something to watch for years to come. The 49ers, with Goff being off the board, they go to offensive tackle. They can't count on Anthony Davis coming back, so Ronnie Stanley from Notre Dame, a guy that you could flip right away to the right side, opposite Joe Staley as a bookend right tackle, and then someday maybe have him replace Joe Staley as the left tackle. I think that makes a lot of sense. Some of you may be surprised about Jalen Ramsey and Vernon Hargreaves dropping a little bit, but part of the thing is that I think certain teams are going to evaluate Jalen Ramsey as a corner and not want to go back to his 2014 film when he looked much better as a safety. And even if they did, some teams might not envision him as a safety of being worth a top 5, 7, or 8 pick. Whereas if they evaluate him as a corner, he might not even be worth a top 10 pick, frankly. But right here, Detroit, they've needed an infusion of youth, talent, athleticism in that secondary. So it doesn't matter whether he plays left corner, right corner, strong safety, free safety. You've got 4 possible spots to start him. Pick one. Jalen Ramsey will be a huge upgrade and represent really good value there. A really, really good value there. But you'll look and you just see in general that this is a draft where it's kind of lean on big-time wide receivers, kind of lean on big-time corners. Although the Raiders at 13, Vernon Hargreaves there would have to do backflips. And I know almost certainly that fan base would have to do backflips. Because you could argue it's easily their biggest need on the defensive side of the ball and would represent a really good value getting somebody like Hargreaves at number 13. But again, a lot of defensive linemen. Not a great class in terms of natural 3-4 outside linebackers. Not a great class for that. Like I've got the Bears taking Leonard Floyd at number 15. I still have some concerns about him. Is he just another Jarvis Jones? But he is incredibly explosive, incredibly athletic, and probably the best of the pure 3-4 outside linebackers. And maybe sometimes you could experiment with flipping him inside as well. But again, I think Connor Cook drops to round 2. At least based off of this scenario, that's what I have happening. Other than that, you can check out the rest for yourself, formulate your own opinions, give me your questions, your thoughts, your comments, your criticism in the comments section down below. I look forward to reading them and hopefully responding to some of them.